In Coach David Taylor we trust, just like we trusted the president who helped bring David Taylor to Stillwater, America. Yet somehow Oklahoma State's Board of Regents is acting like a bunch of butthurt children that are operating more like the Board of Rejects.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we're partially brought to you by Game Time Tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On College, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Meanwhile, we shift gears into the conversation that seems to be permeating throughout the beautiful town or city of Stillwater, America, and that is that Dr. Kayse Shrum has given a resignation. Obviously, this is extremely random. Now, the one caveat I guess I could throw in here for a negative about Dr. Kayse Shrum is the fact that Oklahoma State's veterinary medicine program, who used to be world-renowned, which is what we were known for other than agriculture for the longest of times, is currently under a suspension, probation, potentially in a position where they might lose accreditation. And with her osteopathic background, it doesn't make any sense for Oklahoma State's vet med to be in the condition that it's in now to where it could potentially lose all accreditation. But outside of that, Dr. Kayse Shrum has done a magnificent job as president of Oklahoma State. The kids on campus absolutely adore Dr. Kayse Shrum. Maybe she has some political aspirations someday, but that someday shouldn't be right now. And whomever's in the Board of Regents operating like the Board of Rejects, this whole dynamic needs to be adjusted. They are currently running amok, out of control, and you could make the argument that some of the people making some of the decisions are not actually in the Board of Regents, but they have their names on buildings on campus to some degree, and they have buddies in the Board of Regents. This whole dog and pony show needs to be checked and put in its place very quickly, because this seems very evident. Of course, Board of Regents members have put forth, or they've backed, like 4 potential cases of misappropriation of funds by Dr. Kayse Shrum. I think that is a complete smokescreen just to make a presentation to her that we know we can't exactly force you out, but we're going to make life so difficult on you that you're not going to want to be here anyways. And that's essentially what happened. Is Dr. Kayse Shrum did not want to play the political charade games that the Board of Regents wants her to play. Therefore, she took her ball and went home. From what I know, some of this is absolutely preposterous to even think that this is coming to fruition. This seems very evident that this is a butthurt group of individuals that did not like the fact that Dr. Kayse Shrum and Chad Weiberg, to some degree, checked them after they gave Mike Gundy an ultimatum, and Mike Gundy refused that ultimatum. He didn't take the Board of Regents deal. Therefore, by their wording, Mike Gundy was no longer going to be the head man after 5 p.m. Dr. Kayse Shrum and Chad Weiberg stepped in on behalf of Mike Gundy to help negotiate a new deal that Mike Gundy did, in fact, accept. Somehow that got presented to the Board of Regents, and they looked weak in the process because they had to accept the deal. So all of the virtue signaling that they were doing, regardless, again, of where you fall on the either side of the aisle here when it comes to the Mike Gundy situation, right? I do understand from a business perspective. They are now viewing this, Oklahoma State football and every other institution that they kind of oversee in the state of Oklahoma. This is now a business, right? Mike Gundy's referred to these guys, student athletes, as potential employees at some point in time, which is likely to be accurate. And throughout all of this, Dr. Kayse Shrum has been instrumental in this process. And at the end of the day, the Board of Regents should be happy, like most of us are, because Mike Gundy cleaned house. Like, everything is brand spanking new. So I understand the business proposition that they tried to present, and they tried to view it from a business landscape, and 3 and 9 is not good for business. We get all that. This seems to stem very easily from that. It also seems to stem from some potential naming rights situations. There's a ridiculous bylaw that if you donate a certain amount, you have to donate X amount of the total to have your name on the building or something to that effect. And Boone Pickens still had some money that was, being brought to Oklahoma State, but there was like an endowment and there was some earmarks that it was designed for certain things. And some people wanted some things done some other way, and Dr. Kayse Shrum was going to do right by Boone Pickens. I mean, this could be all completely conjecture, but it seems to me to make the most amount of sense that this has nothing to do with anything nefarious from Dr. Kayse Shrum's standpoint. This is a butthurt group of individuals that did not like being checked. They did not like looking weak. They did not like the fact that there's a power vacuum and nobody's able to take that. Somewhere in his grave, Boone Pickens is rolling because, again, some of this seems to stem from some individuals that would like to be the new Boone, but they're not going to give Boone kind of money. Maybe they don't even have Boone kind of money. Some people don't even want to give any money. They use other people's money, and yet they want to be the top dog. They want to be the Boone Pickens. They want to have some of these decision-making opportunities. But unless you have Boone Pickens money and you're willing to put up Boone Pickens money, who gives a flipping, who cares what your personal opinions are? This has gotten completely out of hand. This is absolutely ridiculous because from a national perspective, the whole thing that shook down out of the Mike Gundy scenario is they looked incompetent, they looked weak, they looked childish. And does anybody think that this is going to make anything better? You presenting this ridiculous, she may have misappropriated funds. Get out of here. This is clearly people that are not happy that they got pushed and they got pushed into a corner and they were forced to recognize that you don't carry quite as much weight as you think that you did. Again, the business model that they were approaching the Mike Gundy scenario from, I get that. But this is not business. This is personal. And Dr. Kayse Shrum has done so many wonderful things for Oklahoma State University, and she's been in lockstep with a lot of the successes, especially with Chad Weiberg and being able to get David Taylor. Now, I do know from a financial perspective, they had some assistance from a UCO grad, but that's because he wants to see the state of Oklahoma get more attention. He wants to see the sport of wrestling get more attention. And by process of elimination, it only makes sense that Dr. Kayse Shrum and Chad Weiberg get the praise for this. And if you do fall on the side of the aisle that none of this should have ever happened to Mike Gundy and he should have been allowed to make the decision, so on and so forth, even if you view it that way, no matter what, they look feckless and ridiculous. And now Oklahoma State looks, I don't want to say equally as so, but not too far off. Yet these are the individuals that helped bring in David Taylor. They helped bring in Steve Lutz. And I know some people are not happy with where basketball is right now, but we're doing a decent job winning ball games at home. We look more competent more often than not than we did the last few seasons under Mike Boynton. You could make the argument that the blowouts are a little troublesome, but this is a group of athletes that we knew what we were getting. We got Steve Lutz somewhat late, comparatively speaking, to other universities. And so I think Weiberg and Shrum have done a pretty remarkable job. And at the end of the day, no matter whom was responsible for Mike Gundy making all of the decisions to cut all the staff and bring all of these SEC and NFL heavy hitters in, it doesn't matter. It happened. So the Board of Regents should be happy. Yet it doesn't appear as though that's the case. They have an axe to grind. And the fun part is this isn't likely going to stop, right? If they have an axe to grind with Dr. Kayse Shrum and they're going to find ways to push her out like this, then who's to say that Chad Weiberg's not going to be next? And then who's to say after that it's not going to be a Josh Holliday or a Mike Gundy? And again, I understand and somewhat respect the business part of this conversation. But this is beyond business. This looks blatantly personal. And nobody can blame Dr. Kayse Shrum for saying, I don't want to do this. I've only tried to do what's best for Oklahoma State other than the vet med debacle, right? But everything else, the education and the systematic designing behind how we're going to get coaches here with big names and how we're going to get NIL dollars associated with that to get these recruiting classes that we're getting, to get the coaches like the Steve Lutz and the David Taylors. It remains to be seen how football is going to shake out. But I think at the end of the day, if this new staff can completely change the trajectory of Oklahoma State and put us back where we're supposed to be, then these individuals in the Board of Regents, or some of the individuals that aren't even in the Board of Regents that have buddies in the Board of Regents that are making some of these decisions or pushing some agendas certain particular ways, this is not good. So this needs to be corrected. And I know some people say that Governor Stitt in Oklahoma has a hand in some of this. If that's the case, Governor Stitt, you need to get a hold of your peoples. You need to get a hold of your homies, and you need to make sure that they stop giving Oklahoma State University a black eye, because the Mike Gundy stuff was a black eye. It was a bad look nationally. And this has also been picked up by some national publications, which is once again putting the Board of Regents at Oklahoma State in the public eye in what should be a precarious situation. But it's not being viewed that way by them. Obviously, you're not hearing of firings and people stepping down, and this is a charade. This is an absolute charade, and it's very sad to see. And now that they've done this, they've proven that this is nothing to do with business as they try to present it to be. This has become personal, which is petty, which is absolutely ridiculous. And Governor Stitt or whomever needs to do something about this. People need to get their hands out of the cookie jar. Or if you want to give Boone money, you want to make Boone decisions, then do it. But don't use other people's money. Don't give $0, yet still want to have arguments about what names are on certain buildings. It's a joke. And now we look like a little bit of a laughing stock. It's ridiculous. What is not ridiculous is you getting the best tickets in the industry with Game Time. If you're looking for tickets to the next big event near you, it doesn't have to be football. It can be concerts, basketball, music, comedy. It's an endless supply of awesome sauce just for you. With the Game Time Picks, it's going to make it even easier. So let's break this thing down. With Game Time Picks, the app is going to do all the hard work for you. It's going to curate all of the best deals so you don't have to waste thousands of minutes looking through hundreds of tickets to get to what is already the best in the ticketing industry, which is Game Time. When using the Game Time Picks, you're going to have the peace of mind that you need to know that you're going to find the best ticket prices no matter what. If you're going to grab the super deal, it's going to give you a prime seat with the best value, and the panoramic view is going to let you know precisely where you're going to be without the ridiculousness of possibly getting put in the wrong section from disingenuous ticket givers. The best part is you're covered Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, Game Time will refund you back 110% of the difference. Your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with an easy cancellation process, just with Game Time. Be ready to make your next big event even better with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, that is LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off. Download Game Time today because you already know what it is. It is last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Speaking of David Taylor, thank you, Dr. Kayse Shrum and Chad Weiberg, for the gift that keeps on giving. Of course, everybody did find out or watch that Bo made his announcement and he decided to take the generational life-changing money. I completely get it. I think a lot of us would look at our kids a little bit differently if they didn't take potentially what is viewed by most as like a $5 million opportunity. So Jax Forrest was likely offered something comparable, because we do know that Iowa did make a massive push, and they are teammates together, and there was some trepidation. So a lot of us were praying, dear 8-pound, 11-ounce baby Jesus, please let Jax Forrest become a Cowboy, and it happened. He is an Oklahoma State Cowboy, and this is absolutely crazy because when you think of it, this is back-to-back absolutely phenomenal classes. Even some of them doesn't have all to do with David Taylor, but his name does carry massive weight. And Jax Forrest talked about that was one of the biggest decision-making processes for him was David Taylor wrestles like him. They move the same as each other. They try to score the same as each other. They talk like each other off of the mat. They think like each other off the mat. They both give glory to God and understand that there's so many ways that you can get Oklahoma State back to where it's supposed to be, but it starts and ends with the talent. You have to have the Jimmies and the Joes, but of course you have to have the X's and the O's go with it. We've seen that in football right? We had a lot of the Jimmies and the Joes. We just didn't have the X's and O's, or at least the implementation of it. David Taylor brings Jimmy Kennedy, and that was something that set the Penn State world on fire. Then we were able to bring in Roman Bravo Young and Thomas Gilman, guys from all over the country that, again, set the wrestling world on fire. The foundational pieces that David Taylor brought in is what has allowed us to do this. But if you even look back towards last season, Oklahoma State was in the same ballpark when it came to recruiting. Yeah, we missed out on number one in the country, Bo Bassett, but before Bo was number one in the country, Jax Forrest was number one in the country. So this is a massive get for Oklahoma State, especially after getting number 3 pound-for-pound wrestler in the country, Drayshawn Ross. Speaking of, somebody let me know, even if it's people in Drayshawn's camp, is he going to play football as well? Because when you have offers from Iowa, Iowa State, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nebraska to play football, and you're coming to Oklahoma State to wrestle, I mean, please tell us you're going to bless us all with your appearance in Boone Pickens Stadium. But nonetheless, you have the number 2 ranked wrestler in the country now at Cowboy and Jax Forrest. You have the number 3 ranked wrestler in the country now with joining Drayshawn Ross. But we also signed the number 22 ranked wrestler in the country, Kalen Wolbert. And we also signed the number 84 ranked wrestler in the country, and Rockland Zinkin. Last year, Oklahoma State had another top class with number 3 pound-for-pound wrestler in the country from Stillwater, Oklahoma, D. Lockett. We also got the number 5 ranked wrestler in the country pound-for-pound in Landon Roboto. We also got the number 6 ranked wrestler in America in Sergio Vega. So this is back-to-back top-notch classes. And do we have Iowa money? No, but we have more than enough to be competitive whenever you have David Taylor and Thomas Gilman at your disposal. When you have Jimmy Kennedy and Roman Bravo Young that are working with Dayton Fix and getting the most out of the underclassmen, this is the perfect recipe. And I think what accentuates the fact that everybody knows Oklahoma State is coming really quick, fast, and in a hurry is the NIL dump that happened at Iowa to get Bo Bassett. Is Bo a potential generational changing guy to a roster? Absolutely, but so is Jax Forrest. So is Drayshawn Ross. So is D. Lockett. So is Landon Roboto. So is Sergio Vega. This is absolute insanity that David Taylor has taken a team that is traditionally an old school, grinded out kind of squad to a team that's here to score points and to make life insanely exciting. Like, watching Dean Hamady Jr. is, I don't know, it's what wrestling's all about. And I think that's my comp here for Jax Forrest. He's virtually the same in the way that he moves, the quickness, the ability to juke on a wrestling mat to get the other guy to kind of lean one way and do what you want him to do, to rack up points in bunches. This kid has tech falls in a matter of seconds because he just scores points and points and points and points and points again. The Magic Man pulled some magic out of his hat to get Jax Forrest, who wrestles almost identical to the way David Taylor did. And almost identical, in my opinion, to how Dean Hamady Jr. wrestles right now. And, of course, you have the closer, the Mariano Rivera and Wyatt Hendrickson. So, to me, like, Dean Hamady is the funnest one to watch, but the most anticipated every night is Wyatt Hendrickson. He's the closer. And to make it even more beautiful is when you have somebody like Wyatt Hendrickson, and I think we've got another guy coming up in a Cody Merrill style of situation. But whenever you have a guy like that, if the match is close at the end and you know you need something to win a duel, there's Wyatt Hendrickson. Now, does that mean he's good enough to beat the grown man, Gable Stevenson? Probably not. But, ladies and gentlemen, Wyatt Hendrickson is a grown man as well. He wrestles like, he's head and shoulders above most everybody else, and he's a lieutenant. So he will give his salute and do his backflip even while he's wrestling Gable. So everybody knows that Oklahoma State is coming. That's why Iowa is emptying out the coffers and searching for NIL dollars out the wazoo, because they don't want to see Oklahoma State surpass them, and it creates such a gap that it's really difficult for them to catch up. Penn State, they know that they're the national champions this season. They know that they bring enough back next season to likely hold that crown as well. But they know after that, Oklahoma State is here. And this is only going to continue to get better. And we're going to continue to chop down the tree and get closer and closer. And as the time goes on, The main question will end up being, how long do we keep David Taylor? How can we keep David Taylor? How do we give David Taylor enough NIL compensation to continue to make this thing viable for the top wrestlers in America? Luckily, Galgrab Arena, Oklahoma State carries such a massive name. If you're a wrestler at all, you've grown up. Even today's era, where Penn State has kind of been owning the landscape like Oklahoma State did for decades, you still understand that it's Oklahoma State, Iowa, Penn State. Ohio State's pretty good. Minnesota traditionally was phenomenal. Cornell's had some major runs here. Michigan was pretty good, especially when they had some of our Cowboys on the roster. But from the transfer market to recruiting to completely changing the perception on how Oklahoma State wrestling is in regards to scoring points, because it used to not be that way, but we didn't have to score a bunch of points. John Smith was such a technical, grind it out, be tougher than everybody, be more malleable, be more flexible, be more heartfelt in the way that you do things kind of guy. Well, David Taylor brings that recipe that he knows existed at Oklahoma State forever and a day. And now he's like, well, also, we're going to teach you how to score so many points that the sport of wrestling can look pretty fun. If you're not a wrestler and you don't know how the points go, if you're just watching a riding time style of scenario, you don't get it. And it's not fun because it's just people laying on each other essentially. But when you're scoring a bunch of points and there's a lot of intensity, there's electricity in the building, this current roster provides that, because that's what David Taylor provides. That's what this wrestling staff provides. And now that you have some of these heavy hitters coming to Oklahoma State, everybody knows that the door for Penn State and Iowa State is closing, and Oklahoma State is about to reclaim the throne at the top of the sport that we belong number one at, no matter what. Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes when you're looking through different lenses of how to capitalize on your monetary capabilities, sometimes we forget about the easiest option, and that is Prize Picks. The more than or less than formula is absolutely incredible for all of us. When you're trying to maximize your winnings, Prize Picks is the best for all of us. There's not a better way or a more exciting way than winning with Prize Picks. It is the best in the country for daily fantasy sports, with over 10 million members and billions in winnings. Prize Picks makes it fun and super simple to get in on the action. All you got to do is pick more than or less than on at least 2-player projections, and if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. Prize Picks has a free pick for big games where Patrick Mahomes might only need to throw for 1 yard. You can pair that with a correct pick, and boom, bada bing, bada bang, you're in the winner's circle. This week, if you're looking at the board and selecting more for Travis Kelce on receiving yards and more for a quarterback passing yardage, there you go. And what you can do that is the most fun is super safe withdrawals. When you win, you can get your cash within as little as 15 minutes. Check the promos tab, and you can find the super sweet Millie winner big game lineups. And if you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That code is LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $50 back instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Get with Prize Picks today. This is your opportunity to run your game your way with Prize Picks. Here on the Hammer the Over squad, we get to talk about some hammering the over, and I know we're one game in, but ladies and gentlemen, I feel like this is the time to buy your tickets to the College World Series in Oklahoma City, because the Cowgirls are a-going. Not only did we just get a W to start the season against the number 9 ranked Florida State Lady Seminoles, but most of the game, it wasn't even close. So the top 5 Cowgirls absolutely dismantled the number 9 ranked team in America. Talon Edwards, you get a home run. Michaela Wark, you get a home run. New NC State transfer catcher Amanda Hassler, you get a home run. And ladies and gentlemen, the Washington transfer, Ruby Malin, who's projected as like the number 2 overall transfer or number 2 overall pitcher transfer in the country. The All-American is the real deal as advertised. She absolutely cruised through this game. And as she goes by, she pitched a little over 5 innings. She did give up a couple runs, but she also had 9 Ks. She faced 21, and 18 of them didn't really have a very good day. They did make a little bit of a run in the last inning. They did hit a couple of home runs to kind of make it some semblance of a competitive game, but it really wasn't for most of it. And the Cowgirl debut for Megan Delgadillo was phenomenal. This individual has speed for days and days and days. She had multiple stolen bases. She made that look easy as well. I say made that. I was listening on the radio. Got to give a shout out to the new radio dude that took over pretty good. Has some vocal cord issues occasionally, but very good representation on the radio. Sounded good, clear, crisp, concise. He gave a good account of the game, and it was just so much fun to hear how, I don't know, easy we were making it feel like at certain points of the game. It almost felt like it was a team of destiny. And yes, the expectation is to win the Big 12. I know Kenny Gajewski won't say it, but that is the expectation. If OU's gone, Texas is gone, the expectation is to win it. And I know most of us kind of are going to miss the fact that OU and Texas are not in the Big 12 for softball for this reason. Much like Cowboy wrestling is coming and everybody knows it, this softball squad might have the ability to win a natty. I know that's big praise, but the expectation is to get to OKC, which is the equivalency of Omaha for softball. That is the expectation now under Kenny Gajewski. And we've had some runs or some teams that look capable of winning the whole thing, but we were going up against the juggernauts of softball at the time, mainly OU. But even sprinkled in there, you had Bama, you had UCLA, you had Florida, you had other big-time universities that were making massive runs that did make life difficult. This looked or felt like, sounded like, I guess would be better. I know words are hard for me. This sounded like it wasn't even much of a game. It sounded like the number 9 ranked team in the country who has multiple national titles in this sport shouldn't have been on the same time. And now, could Florida State have just had a bad day? Possibly. Could their 2 home runs at the very, very end be an example of what they could possibly look like? Maybe. Did Riley Crandall come in and struggle a little bit there at the end? Yes. But Coach Kenny Gajewski has said this might be the most offensively able team that he's ever coached. And it definitely looked like that. And the transfers are sliding in so seamlessly. It's pretty wild to have somebody that's like faster than Chelsea Alexander, that does the little drag bunt kind of thing, that gives you an extra few feet. It's almost impossible to get her out at first base. And as we heard, they had a very difficult time even getting her out at second or third base or home either. So we have insane speed that you have to have. You have to have the epitome of a leadoff. We have that. We have power all up and down the lineup. Not only do we have Ruby Malin, who clearly looked like one of the top pitchers in the country for a reason, but I have no doubt that Riley Crandall is going to get it together after watching what she did at Baylor this previous year. Just like I have no doubt that Kyra Aycock's going to be able to kind of dial it back in after having injuries this previous season. You still have Katie Coots. You still have one of the top recruiting classes in the country, so we have freshmen waiting in the wings, much like you kind of anticipate for baseball. This is a team good enough to win a national title because OU is still going to be the juggernaut, but they're not the same as they have been the last couple of years. The last couple of years, they've had girls shattering home run records and batting average records and triples records. Most of those girls are gone. They're still OU. They're still going to be phenomenal. But call me crazy. It feels like a little bit of a door has opened here for Oklahoma State to kind of slide on in. Just like we're going to slide on out of here. That's all we're going to have for this one. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for checking out this episode, the Haas Haney episode. If you liked it, like the daggone thing. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe, and hit the dislike it if you don't. My podcasting folks, you're the butter that makes this thing churn, baby. Do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave a review. I appreciate you. All righty, y'all. Later, taters.